What happens when a man with everything, money, power, and influence, decides to walk in the shoes of someone working under him? Let's dive into the story of Ethan Walker, a CEO who discovers a truth that shakes his beliefs and changes his life forever. Ethan Walker was a man admired by many. As the CEO of Atlas Transit, a nationwide transportation company, he had built an empire. His company owned hundreds of taxis, buses, and delivery vehicles. To the world, Ethan was a success story, a man who had risen from nothing to lead one of the most profitable transportation companies in the country. But what people didn't know was that Ethan felt a growing emptiness inside. Surrounded by luxury, he had started to wonder if he truly understood the lives of the people who worked for him. One quiet evening, sitting in his large modern office, Ethan glanced out the window at the bustling city below. The streets were filled with people rushing home, taxis honking, and the hum of life that his business served every day. He wondered, do I even know what it's like to live like them anymore? The thought lingered, and an idea began to form. Ethan decided to go undercover. Not with cameras or a production crew, but on his own. He wanted to see firsthand what it was like to work in his company, not as a boss, but as a regular employee. To start, he'd experience life as one of his taxi drivers. Early the next morning, Ethan donned an old leather jacket, a faded baseball cap, and simple jeans. He left his luxury car at home and ordered a taxi, one from his own fleet. The driver who arrived was an older man named Joe Simmons. Joe was a wiry, gray-haired man with kind eyes and a friendly smile. His taxi was clean but well-worn, a clear sign that it had seen years of use. Ethan got into the back seat. Joe greeted him warmly, asking, "Where to?" Ethan gave a random address across town, pretending to be just another passenger. As they drove, Ethan watched Joe carefully. The man's hands were rough, his face lined with years of hard work. Joe hummed softly as he navigated the busy streets. Ethan decided to strike up a conversation. "Been driving long?" he asked. Joe chuckled. "Oh, about 25 years. Seen the city change a lot from behind this wheel." Ethan leaned forward, curious. "That's a long time. You must have some stories." Joe smiled wistfully. "Oh, sure. Every day's different. But, it's not always easy. The hours are long, and the money isn't what it used to be." Ethan felt a pang of guilt. His company had been cutting costs recently, and he hadn't considered how it affected people like Joe. As they continued talking, Joe began to open up. He told Ethan about his life, how he had once been a factory worker before the plant shut down, how driving a taxi became his only option. He spoke about his family, his two sons who were working hard to make something of themselves. But then Joe's tone changed. He said quietly, "sometimes I wonder if the people running these companies even know what it's like for us. We're just numbers to them, not people. They don't see the nights we skip meals to make rent, or the mornings we wake up sore from sitting for 15 hours straight." Ethan felt like Joe's words were aimed directly at him. He wanted to say something, to defend himself, but he stayed silent. He wasn't here to argue. He was here to listen. A few minutes later, Joe pulled up to Ethan's destination. Ethan, still deep in thought, asked if Joe could wait and take him back home. Joe agreed, happy for the extra fare. On the way back, Ethan asked Joe what he would do if he could change one thing about the company. Joe hesitated, then said, "I'd want them to care more. Not just about profits, but about us. Fix the cabs, pay us better, give us a reason to feel proud of what we do." Ethan nodded slowly, his mind racing. When they arrived at Ethan's home, a sprawling estate that made Joe's eyes widen, Ethan revealed the truth. "Joe, I need to tell you something. I'm not just another passenger. I'm Ethan Walker. I'm the CEO of Atlas Transit." Joe froze, his hands gripping the steering wheel. "You're kidding." Ethan shook his head. "I'm serious, and what you've told me today, it's opened my eyes. I had no idea things were this tough for you and the others, but I'm going to make it right." Joe was skeptical but nodded politely. He had heard promises like this before. The next day, Ethan called an emergency meeting with his executive team. He shared everything Joe had told him and demanded changes. They needed to increase driver pay, repair and replace aging vehicles, and provide better support for their employees. His team resisted, arguing about costs and profits, but Ethan stood firm. Over the next few weeks, Ethan personally visited drivers, mechanics, and other staff to hear their stories. He implemented changes that made life better for them, from fair wages to safer working conditions. Months later, Ethan saw Joe again. This time, Ethan flagged down Joe's taxi intentionally. When he got in, Joe smiled. "Boss, didn't expect to see you again." Ethan grinned. "Just wanted to thank you, Joe. You showed me what I was missing. Because of you, we're making things better." Joe nodded, his eyes shining with gratitude. "Well, Mr. Walker, I think you just might be the kind of boss we need." Power and money mean little if you forget the people who help you achieve success. Real leadership comes from empathy, understanding, and the courage to make a difference. Ethan learned this lesson the hard way, but in doing so, he became a leader worth following. That's the story, friends. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a pleasure sharing it with you all. Don't forget to comment below and let me know where you're watching from. It's always fun to see the global reach of these stories. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button for more amazing stories, tips, and tricks. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. If you'd like to show some extra love, tap the 3 dots near the share button and send a super thanks.